First of all, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. For those not familiar with you, do you want to share a little bit about how you became the Adam Coates that we know and love?
Oh, I'd love to. So 35 years old, I came out of a job being a publicist in the book publishing industry for 7 years, setting up radio and TV interviews all over the country. I got into sales on accident. I was actually in the accounting department at the book publishing company, and they said, "We think you'd be good as a publicist." And I was like, no. I want my spreadsheets. Leave me alone. They literally thrust me into a sales job. And then about 3 months later, threatened to fire me and said, "You're terrible." And I said, "You pulled me from the accounting department." And so I had to self-learn sales. I bought Selling for Dummies. I bought every sales book you can imagine. I watched webinars. This is back in 2000, I don't even know, 5, 6 or something. And I learned how to sell, and I became very good. I ran the entire department. I taught other people how to sell. I became very consultative. It was a long form sales cycle where someone's writing a book and I'm working on marketing. And so years later, it ended up working really good for real estate. So long story short, the company went out of business because book publishing is a challenging business. I ended up working for Trulia, market leader, for 1 year, selling marketing to real estate agents. And I'm like, I should get my license. I was broke. The company I had worked for had gone out of business and missed a few paychecks. And so I'm 35, I'm broke. And I'm doing the real estate exam on the bus, trying to learn how to do real estate. And, I started buying leads from Trulia. That's all I knew. I sold that product. I bought that product. Within 2 months of being licensed, got licensed in 2014. I quit my job, and I'm like, I wasn't overly confident. I saw a pipeline. I had 2 deals closed from a buddy of mine who bought and sold. I had people I was showing homes to from the paid leads, and I frankly was burned out. I was up at 5 and I went to bed at midnight because I'm traveling to work, and I just literally couldn't physically do it. And I'm like, let's go. So I started putting paid leads on credit cards. I started working 70 hours a week, cold calling, door knocking, FSBOs, expireds. I hadn't discovered open houses yet, but and half the work I was doing was not effective. I was building landing pages. I was blogging. I was trying everything. If I had a clear path, I could have done it in half the time. But that first year, my first full year, I got licensed in September 2014, quit my job in January. So 2015 was my first full year, and I got Rookie of the Year for a Keller Williams office, sold 20 homes that year. Next year was 25, 30, 35, and 3 attempts at building a team, 3 killing the team. My last attempt was 2 years ago. I had 18 agents. I had 6 staff. My payroll was $250K a year. I thought doing okay. I hired a full-time recruiter. I was like, we're going to 50. And then they raised rates on me, and half of them scattered to get jobs. I'm stuck holding the bag with the salaries. And so I'm like, you know what? I owed the IRS $300,000. I'm like, I got to dig out of this. We're not discharging any debts. We're going to pay our bills. So 2 years ago, killed the team, laid off all the American admin, went to straight VAs. I've got 3 VAs, and I just buckled down and I did the hard work that I was trying to get agents to do. And for me, my expertise has always morphed into paid leads and open houses and past clients. And I do a fair amount of agent to agent referrals. I've been making at least 6 figures from that for the past 4 or 5 years. But open houses have been my big game. And I just, for me, I was like, let's go back to basics. And I buckled down. I just buckled down.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. And by the way, how long ago did you start doing open houses in earnest?
Open houses for me, I discovered open houses probably my 3rd year in real estate. So that would have been 2017. And I went hardcore. I don't think I mentioned this, but when I was probably a year and a half into real estate, I sold my home because I had been cold calling and generating leads from open houses in really nice areas. And I lived an hour and a half away. And I was like, you know what? At the time, those price points were $250 and the luxury price points were like $1 million. Now it's triple that. Entry level 600, luxury 3 million. And so I sold my home and I moved to Kirkland, Washington, which is like the luxury suburbs. And my entire strategy, that when I had the team, we would go broader. but anything I personally paid for, farmed, mailers, open houses, cold call, door knocking was in Kirkland. And in Bellevue, Washington's right next door, but Kirkland or Bellevue. And that's been my entire thing. So I live here, I work here, and I have always done opens, and I've been very, very good at it. Now, my system has morphed over the years. What started, we've all heard the term E to P, entrepreneurial to purposeful. I started off very entrepreneurial, and I have become very purposeful. When I started off, I just stood there and I was nice to people and I chatted them up. And to be honest, that's still the bread and butter of an open house. If you can't stand there and make friends quickly, you are not going to make money. I can teach you my entire system. And by the way, I've taught hundreds of agents my system, and 5 of them have just destroyed it. And the rest of them are like, I don't know, it's just luck of the draw. It's not the luck of the draw. You got to be able to go make friends quickly. Now, that being said, I do it very purposefully with a system that's measurable, that's repeatable. I use the same joke for 10 years straight. Like, this is a system that I have implemented that anybody can do. The hard part is connecting. Yeah. That's the key. But for me, my biggest thing, I'll tell you just before we get into it, is hyperlocal. When you stay hyper-local, you begin to know every street, every elementary. You know where the prices change. You know where just everything about it. And then when the people come in, they realize you have something a little different.
Well, and so to that point, I find with open house agents, it's not about necessarily the traffic that comes to the house. It's also about what you do to widen the audience to see that Adam is a busy realtor doing good things out in the world, right? So I'm curious, how far out, if you're going to hold it, you said Saturday is kind of your sweet spot. If you're going to host a listing on Saturday, how far out before then are you calling that listing agent to secure it?
The rhythm is basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in that range. Literally, for years, I had it on my calendar on a Wednesday. Go get an open house. And it's just part of my lead generation funnel. The basic funnel is Wednesdays. It can be Tuesday, it could be Thursday, but let's just say Wednesdays, you're going to go get opens. If I was really in need of money, I would follow what Cody Wetzel is doing out in Lake Havasu, Arizona with eXp Realty. He'll make $1 million. He made $1 million last year in his second year of real estate on a team, Dustin Runyon's team. And his entire thing is door knocking around open houses.
Okay.
That's what I would do. I don't do it. I'm anxious about door knocking. I've done it, but if I needed money right now, it wouldn't really. The open would be 50%. The door knock would be 50%.
Okay, I think you mentioned this guy in a mastermind, I think last year at EXPCon, and forever afterwards, I kept racking my brain because I wanted to talk to this person. So thank you.
Cody Wetzel, Lake Havasu, Arizona. He's on Dustin Runyon's team, and they're EXP agents, and he's already sold. He's on a team in a average price point, $600,000. And I think he's probably at 40 or 50 million this year already in his 3rd year of real estate. Crazy. And he has his own assistant, his own junior agent under him on a team. And it's from door knocking open houses. In fact, he says, I don't even care about the open. I'll let someone else have the open. I want to door knock the open because he wants listings. I get anxious at door knocking. I've done it plenty of door knocking, but for me, I can cold call with the best of them. But door knocking, I feel like I'm imposing. Open houses, I'm not imposing. You came into my house. Cold calling, I don't know what happens. I feel great about cold calling, but if I was a new agent, the rhythm would be Tuesday find an open. Thursday, Friday, door knock, because Cody door knocks 4 hours and 4 hours. He's door knocking 400 homes before an open. And then if it's rainy or hot, because they're in the desert, they'll circle prospect around it. You do the open. I honestly am pretty lazy about how I do the opens. I don't go on social media. I have put out 20 or 30 signs. I've put out 1 sign. In my area, it's all tech people. They don't care. So I lean on like 3 to 5 signs at this point in my life because I'm busy. I just show up. I sometimes have a little music, sometimes not. I have my laptop open. I've got a notepad and a pen. I've got a little name tag that has my name on it. I dress nice. That's it. They come in, I talk to them, and I love up on them, and I try to set an appointment. Okay.
And you said first and second weekend of the listing. Do you mean? Okay. Very good.
Yep.
And so 4 to 10 groups coming in, and what's success for you? when you think about like an open house, obviously we'd like the buyer with a suitcase full of money to walk in and say, I'll take it.
Yep.
But what does success look like for you?
Well, like yesterday and the day before, Saturday, Sunday, I did an open house here in Kirkland, Washington, 3.3 million open. One couple I clicked with so well, I definitely could have got them, but they had an agent. And I was like, it's cool. They were reload people. It's all good. I loved up on them. I helped them. I tried to sell the home for the listing agent, but I guarantee you I would have had them if they weren't represented. Another one came in on Saturday that are tech people, 2-income household, super nice, early. They own a home, have no agent. Their budget is up to $4 million. And they want to kind of breeze past me quietly. They're trying to sneak past the kitchen. And so I engaged them. I asked some questions. I began to teach them something. I discussed some ways we could get the rates down. I talked about the seasonality of buying a home. I talked about builders I like and builders we might want to think about on the quality. And I got very specific and hyperlocal. And by the end of it, they're like, we are very open to meeting and working with you. They're going on vacation next week. I'm going to be at EXPCon the week after. And so it didn't work, but I've got their info. We're going to get together in November. They're very, very open to it. And warm body language. I texted them afterwards. They replied to the text. They're like, yes, we really enjoyed our interaction with you. So I feel like this is one step below an appointment, and they're very qualified. They're nice. These are like my ideal people. And so when I get something like that, I will chase them. I will do everything I can to meet with these people.
A lot of the agents we've talked to have some sort of lead magnet that they're offering. So they, ask for the consultation and things like that. Let's go tour some of these other homes. But barring anything else, they want to get their contact information. And you mentioned, if you can offer some value to them, set the appointment, you can get their contact information. Is there anything else that you're doing to do that?
I have done lead magnets with varying degrees of success. Most of the time, I end up getting way too many names and numbers to chase. I actually prefer to not do that because I can qualify the conversation. Do we have an agent? Do we have timing and motivation? Are you nice? Do you laugh at my jokes? Like I can pre-qualify and that way it's like the sign-in sheet drives me crazy because I'm calling people who don't want to be called and half of them have agents. So I really prefer no lead magnet. There's no right and wrong. I once heard a class from a lady who put a table by the door and she roadblocked it. And, and that's the whole game. Like my game is being loose, being friendly, adding value, teaching them something, and willingly earning their information.
Got it. And when we're doing these open houses, are we trying to set up tours like immediately after? Or are you saying, hey, if you like this one, but you didn't like it, I've got these others that are ready. How are you doing that?
When appropriate. So this family I met last weekend, they had a home that they showed me on their phone. They're like, by the end of it, they trusted me enough to go, what do you think of this one? And they turned around a $3.4 million home. And I'm like, oh, I know that builder. I know that neighborhood. This is right on the border of XYZ. Here's the pros. Here's the cons. I've been on that street. That street goes down and then there's a forest. And they're like, yeah. And so like, I know the neighborhood so well that also built rapport. And I'm like, you know what? We're all busy. You're going out of town soon. Why don't you let me walk it with you? Let's walk this home that you're interested in. I'll point out the good and the bad. And they're like, let's do it when you get back from your trip. And so the open house tends to attract people who are early. And the pitch is, I am low pressure. And yet you have to close and seem low pressure. So how do we close and be low pressure? Brian, I know that you're in no hurry. You don't need to buy a home right now. In my experience, the best thing to do if you're really early is to meet with me now so that I can guide you and give you some homework and some things to do regarding financing, regarding neighborhoods, so that now over the next 2, 3, 4 months, you're going to the right opens and you're doing the right activities. Otherwise, you could just be burning time. You're in no hurry. Let's meet. How's today at 5 or tomorrow, right? Because you have to make a case why early people who are in no rush should meet with me and I am low pressure. Because their biggest fear is you're a high pressure salesman. You're going to close me. I don't want to meet with you. I'm early. If you buy into that, you're going to call them in 6 months and somebody will have gotten them because now they're getting closer. You didn't close. So you don't get paid. Yeah. So how do we close in a low pressure way that's not really very low pressure?
Are you seeing in your market a lot of inventory coming online, low buyer urgency.
We are up 100% year over year on inventory. Yeah.
And how do you take a buyer who's like, man, I got all the time in the world. Look at all this inventory. I can hang out and pick my home whenever I see it. How do you deal with that?
I think the first thing is to meet with them, is to get a commitment and get them out looking at inventory. I'm willing to look at inventory before they're pre-approved, because I believe that looking at inventory moves the needle. It sharpens the axe. We can figure out what they like, what they don't like. And so that when I bring them something that is dead on, they really have no excuse not to buy it. Yeah. They have no excuse, because we've done it little by little over several months. The only thing that's left is there's a motivation issue. And then at that point, I usually back off for a month or two and let them simmer and marinate. At any point in time, I've got 25 to 35 million marinating. These are people who are committed to me and at different stages. And you know what? I'm good with that. I'm not the one that's going to try to force their timeline forward. I will nudge it forward, and then I will listen and comply. Because if we nudge and force their timeline prematurely more than once or twice, we get fired. So I got fired last year over that issue. I got fired for nudging a little too much on one of my past clients. And I'm like, I started asking too many questions. They're like, we're going to buy next summer. And I'm like, cool. Well, if I happen to find something really great, you would buy sooner? And they're like, yeah, if it was really great. And I'm like, cool, let's define really, really great. And I started trying to define really great, and it pissed them off. And so the reality is the best thing to do is get commitment, stay in touch respectfully, and just work with people. Don't try to force people to do anything.
I find that people who kind of do what you just said, forcing people into things, are the people who aren't consistent with their lead gen. If you are, you can let it build the kind of pipeline that you're describing, and when they're ready, they will interact if you've kept touch over time. I could ask you 50 more questions about this, but I know we're at time. So I'm just going to say thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.